Awesome. With that, we're going to move into Meg from ShipBob. Hello. How's it
Hi,
going?
Derek. How's it
I'm
going?
doing great. We're going to bring in Jourdan from Pit Viper. Really excited to have you guys here. I will let you guys take it away.
Great. Thanks, Derek. That was a fantastic session for us to segue to actually, obviously, being a 3PL center discussion because we're going to keep the party going and focus specifically on how Pit Viper is leveraging our WMS product. So, little backstory about me. I'm Meg. I'm a senior partner manager here at ShipBob. I manage our relationship with Pipe 17 and really all of our connectors that allow our brands to have a fully omni-channel fulfillment solution. So, wherever they sell, we can connect to and we can fulfill. I wanted to introduce Jourdan Davis, who's the Director of Operations at Pit Viper, which is a brand I know all of you have heard of or seen out there in the world. But for those who haven't, global sunglasses brand working to achieve the optimal blend of style and performance. So Jourdan, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Like Meg said, I'm Director of Operations over here at Pit Viper, and what that entails is managing our relationship with ShipBob, overseeing our flagship self-owned warehouse here in Salt Lake City, as well as overseeing our 3PLs, which we utilize with ShipBob in both Australia and Canada. A little background on Pit Viper. If you haven't heard of us, we are, like Meg said, a global sunglass brand. And we started about 12 years ago when our founder, Chuck Mumford, was looking for the best sunglasses in the game, and he couldn't find them. So he decided to take matters into his own hands and went to an army surplus store, found some shielded sunglasses, and decided to paint them to add a little flair to them. And then from there, decided to use those sunglasses to trade for rides up the canyon to go skiing and for beers. And then 12 years later, we're an 80-person company operating in 3 countries. And we pride ourselves on not taking ourselves too seriously, but also running a profitable business. So, it's been a great journey. I've been with Pit Viper for 3 years, and the growth that we've seen in the past 3 years has been insane. And just the operational efficiencies we found by utilizing ShipBob have been really great.
That's so cool. I don't think you can think of like a more there we go. I should be wearing mine too, actually. Maybe while you're talking, I'll mute and turn my camera off and go grab mine. You can't really think of like a more authentic origin story or sort of like organic community following in the age of social media and TikTok. So that's that's fantastic origin to the company. As you mentioned, you're using our warehouses for your warehouse management software. So you actually have your own facility outside of Salt Lake City that's using ShipBob to power warehouse operations. So the picking and the packing and the shipping. We've seen huge improvements in accuracy. You did a case study with us that saw 99% of case improvement with our WMS. So, working with us and being able to get those orders out and seeing 99% accuracy is pretty huge, especially for an apparel brand. And the great thing about our WMS is it's the same WMS that powers our entire network. So if it's a ShipBob facility or if it's a Pit Viper facility. And you're also taking a hybrid approach to fulfillment. So you're expanding globally with ShipBob. So you're in our facilities in Canada and Australia. So let's back up. And obviously you mentioned that you work with us in this capacity, but talk to me about considering a WMS, sort of like what the challenges were before you started working with ShipBob, and what that looked like before.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was originally brought on to Pit Viper to kind of take a look at our warehouse and find operational efficiencies and see if a WMS was the best fit for us, because when I started, we were utilizing ShipStation, and there was some organization to the warehouse, but essentially it was you print the pick ticket and you kind of have to wander around until you find the right sunglasses, take them back to the pack station, and then slap the label on them. So I came in and decided that yes, a WMS would be the best fit for us because of how fast we were growing and how many orders we were putting out the door. ShipStation just wasn't able to grow with us, and we needed to take the next step. And that happened to be with ShipBob. We were looking for a partner that we could utilize for a WMS, as well as have it all be integrated in the same system with our 3PLs, because like you said, we were expanding or planning to expand internationally, but wanted to get the low-hanging fruit first with that WMS and making sure that our own warehouse was optimized as much as possible. So now that we're utilizing ShipBob's WMS in our own warehouse, we've seen an increase in, like you said, a decrease in mispicks, which is a huge issue for us because we have so many SKUs and so many similar SKUs. And we were seeing, I think, like $200,000 of mispicks per year go out the door. And that's including like lost inventory, lost sales. So we wanted to make sure we were mitigating that issue. And with ShipBob, we have like triple checks in place. It's all SKU based. So it's taking away a lot of the guessing work for our team and taking away a lot of that human error where you can go out and you have everything on your WMS, on your iPad, and it just directs you in the most efficient way through the warehouse. So it's decreased a lot of that pick, pack, and ship time that we were seeing too, and just increased efficiencies there. So we're able to have a leaner team in the warehouse. So yeah, we've unlocked a ton of efficiencies using this WMS over the past few years. And I think it makes sense for a brand that is growing quickly and does have that many orders going out the door. There are times where sometimes it's simpler just to have ShipStation and be able to pick that out. But I think as a brand that's growing so quickly in that time period, it was the perfect fit for us.
Great. Yeah, that's really great. So you're able to keep your team, keep your facility, sort of like keep that brand voice and like the picking and packing process, or just having that line of sight and visibility, but then you're using a software or a process that's more optimized for operational efficiency.
Exactly.
You know, you run a warehouse similar to how we would run a warehouse.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same setup essentially. When we implemented, we had the ShipBob team come in and help us design the layout. But at the core of Pit Viper and who we are as a brand, we wanted to keep that cultural piece of having our own warehouse because we do like to have a lot of personalization in these packages, and it's a lot easier when you are just doing that self-fulfilled. But yeah, leaning on that for a cultural standpoint and the customer experience standpoint of owning our own warehouse, and then using that hybrid method internationally as well.
Yeah, amazing. So let's talk about seasonality. Pit Viper is one of the rare brands that has 2 peak seasons. Obviously, a lot of people actually know Pit Viper from skiing, but then obviously, you've got you've got the baseball, wrong sport, baseball culture too in the summer. So talk to me about managing seasonality forecasting, both for labor, but then order fluctuation, what that's been like managing on your side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as Meg mentioned, we have the rare circumstance where we have 2 peaks. Obviously Black Friday, Cyber Monday as an e-commerce brand, that's going to naturally be one of our peaks. Yeah. And then we do a huge push during the summer. We're sunglasses. We want people to be outside because that's part of who we are as a brand is go get outside, have fun, do sports, take yourself less seriously, wear some silly sunglasses that are also very well designed. So yeah, we have to attack the dual seasonality in terms of labor forecasting as well as inventory forecasting. So with labor forecasting, I think as the previous folks mentioned, it's very difficult to do for seasonality. I don't think there's a perfect way to forecast exactly how many orders you're going to get. But over the years, we've been able to be a lot better about collecting data and using that to make data-driven decisions during these peak forecasts. So the metrics we're looking at for labor forecasting, we look back at the sales data from previous years and compile that into what we have forecasted for any sales changes. And then now with ShipBob as our WMS, we can bring it down and dial it down into how many packages a certain shipper is sending out a day. And that way we can extrapolate that out and be able to labor forecast pretty accurately without overhiring, because like we mentioned, we are our self-owned warehouse and don't really have that the flexibility to hire 15 people and then let them go in the same season. So we have a strategy where we're looking at probably hitting our SLA 90% of the time during seasonality. And this is all based on data-driven decisions or data-driven metrics that we have from previous sales years.
Fantastic. Great. So making more informed decisions and feeling like you're not overextending yourself on the inventory side or on the labor side. And then obviously losing kind of important sort of dollars or margin or revenue during those peak seasons. Let's talk about international expansion. So Pit Viper there's a global following, and you can see Pit Vipers everywhere. I know I used to live in Australia, super, super popular there. Talk to me about the decision to launch internationally and what the sort of challenges and kind of successes have been there.
Yeah, I think just with the expectations of e-commerce and how high those expectations have been set across internationally, especially in the US with Amazon, we found and we identified an area for improvement with our international shipping and lead times between the time someone orders a pair of sunglasses to when they're receiving it. And we wanted to close that gap a little bit for our second largest market, which was Canada. So that was the initial thought going into Canada and saying, okay, how are we going to get our packages to our customers as efficiently and quickly as possible and increase that customer experience and making sure that we don't have a 2-week lead time between when they're ordering it and when they're actually receiving it. So that was the biggest kicker at the beginning. And then as we started to do a cost analysis, we obviously realized that shipping costs were going to decrease significantly if we had a warehouse in country. So that was our 2 biggest metrics going into Canada. And obviously we started with Canada because it was our second largest market. And since then we have expanded into Australia as well as our third largest market. And it just came down to we are a brand that values our customer experience. We have really cool custom packaging. We have inserts that we put in everything. And that experience is part of who we are as a brand. And being able to cut down the lead time between orders hitting the customer's door was huge for us. So we've seen a huge increase in the customer experience in that regard, as well as a decrease in shipping costs in Canada and Australia. So yeah, it was definitely a bit of a learning curve in terms of getting inventory accurate and forecasting for Canada and Australia. We started and sent inventory to Canada pretty close post-COVID. And as I'm sure most e-commerce brands out there experienced, was a huge spike during COVID. And then utilizing that data to forecast for the future, we overordered. So we ended up sending probably too much inventory to Canada, but since then we've learned to be more data driven. Again, I keep pointing back to that, but using our data analysis tools in a better way and using more data to be able to dial in exactly how much inventory each location is going to need and forecast better.
Yeah, I think it's got to be hard, right, for a brand because you're reaching a critical mass where you are losing money having to ship those orders cross border, but then making sure that you're not having this glut of inventory that's sitting there waiting to find that customer base. So finding exactly when the right moment is, and to your point, having a data-driven 3PL or a data-driven system where you have visibility and line of sight to projections and kind of as order volume ticks up in different regions, you can make more informed decisions.
Yeah, for sure. And I think kind of going off of that, during COVID, when we were hitting our peak and everyone had spendable income, we had a lot of stockouts. So we panicked and ordered too much inventory. And then all of a sudden, now we have inventory on hand that we can't, that we're not necessarily moving through as quickly. So yeah, I think it's evened out over the years, and we've been able to dial in with a kind of a revamped inventory forecasting program.
Great. I think this is worth also mentioning too, if you're leveraging ShipBob for our WMS product, meaning you're using your own warehouse, but using our software, you can still leverage our facilities, as Jourdan said. So same tech, same line of visibility, same process. You can log onto your ShipBob dashboard and see what's going on in your orders in your US warehouse, but then also your orders, what's going on in Canada, Australia, UK, EU, wherever you're using us. So worth mentioning as well. So we talked about international expansion side of kind of dovetailing with COVID and sort of that happening after you made the decision that you needed to level up from ShipStation to something that was a little bit more robust and full service for your team. So biggest challenges are, I guess, learning curves in that growth journey. You've exploded, you've seen a lot of opportunity with international expansion. You have a huge team based in Salt Lake City. What are some key pieces, things you might have done differently or things that you're happy now going forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think right now where Pit Viper is at as a brand and a company, we're trying to dial in our operational efficiencies and our operational footprint. At the beginning, we were just excited about the brand. We wanted to get it out there, get our name out there. And we were trying a bunch of different things in terms of operations as well, and seeing what worked and what sticks. So now we're able to take a step back and look at this big picture of who Pit Viper is and dial in and say, hey, this worked or this didn't. Let's get rid of that. Let's pour more energy and resources into that. And when I'm talking about that, I think a good example would be expanding into Australia. We we decided that, yes, it's our third largest market. Let's get a 3PL out there and let's see what happens. And then we also have a team on the ground there, so we're able to localize a lot better than we are in like Canada, for an example. So I think like a big challenge that we faced was kind of expanding too quickly, maybe, and then having to dial in and realize what works versus what doesn't work. If that answers your question, but I think a good example of this is having a team on the ground in Australia and saying, "Hey, like let's figure out what the culture is there. Let's figure out what types of sunglasses are selling well there," instead of just starting and like putting a 3PL there and using data. We're able to have a very personalized connection and a localized experience for those Australian customers.
Yeah, fantastic. What are, I guess, out of curiosity, like what are some of the key differences? It's just brand to brand. Curious, understanding that market.
I mean, it's interesting because the seasons are opposite, so we have to make sure we're catering to that. And then on top of that, it's just like there's different sports that Australians like. So like we are very focused on like skiing and biking and running here in the US, but there's so many different niche little categories out in Australia that we probably wouldn't realize unless we had a team out there. And again, I think this is brand specific of having a team on the ground. And yes, we are very lucky to be able to do that, but we've seen expansion grow pretty quickly. And then on top of that, the B2B landscape is so different, and like obviously culturally. So being able to have a team down there going door to door and making sure that these retailers are satisfied with what inventory they're getting and what experience they're having has been a huge win for us.
Yeah, that's so cool. Some of the localization pieces. Obviously, you've got a software program and you've got a system and a process that works globally. But then to your point, like having a team on the ground, understanding what the market is, meeting the market, that's really important. I think a lot of brands just assume if there's significant volume in that region that they're going to see that once they try to go omni-channel, that they expand in the region, it's just going to be like they're going to see that same trajectory of growth. But there's a lot of unseen challenges, I think, that you learn kind of as you go on the global omni-channel piece. So curious about what the future holds for Pit Viper and what's next. I can't imagine there's like many more places for you to go.
Yeah, I mean, the world's our oyster,
Yeah.
No, but in terms of what's next for Pit Viper, I think we want to lean into the omni-channel sphere a little bit more. We're expanding into Amazon. We currently have that expansion in the US. We're looking into Canada for FBA. And then, yeah, our B2B landscape is just increasing a lot faster than our D2C. So we want to continue to pour resources into that and see where that goes. But yeah, like I said, I think right now for Pit Viper, we're just focused on operational efficiency. And I think for all e-commerce brands, it's probably a similar situation where if you started before COVID and you saw that spike, we had to kind of react. And now we're being more proactive in what we're doing in terms of inventory forecasting, labor forecasting, and how we're handling like all operations. So just really dialing in exactly who we are as a brand, as well as who we are as like an operational footprint.
Yeah, curious to understand exactly, and this is really for my own edification, like how you keep that brand voice through growth and scale. Like if you had sort of like one key piece that you're focused on, or Pit Viper's sort of like MO is to make sure that we maintain no matter where we're going and where we sell.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it'd be awesome if I had one of my marketing people here, but I think what they would have me say is always be Pit Viper. So that's one of our kind of brand philosophies, as well as our cultural philosophies, is we're always going to stay true to ourselves. We have competitors like Oakley and Smith who are out there, and they're bigger brands than us, but we are going to make sure that every experience with a pair of Pit Vipers is different, is that you're getting this kind of curated, customized brand experience. And, you don't get that all the time with these bigger companies. We're making sure that we have lifetime warranty. We have very customized boxes, as I said. So like really focusing on setting ourselves apart from these larger sunglass companies and not taking ourselves too seriously, I think is like the biggest part. And And while I say that, like the operations team here at Pit Viper does take ourselves seriously.
Of course.
Yeah, but
having machinery, of course. Yeah, you take yourself seriously. Yeah.
I mean, we're dealing with a lot of money, so we got to take ourselves a little seriously. But at the same time, we want to focus on expanding the brand, but keeping true to who we are. And that goes to say, like when we were partnering with ShipBob or looking to find a partner, we wanted to find someone that allowed us to do that, and made sure that we were partnering with someone that kind of had the same vision as us in terms of expansion. So yeah, staying true to the brand, I think, is at the base of it, just always being Pit Viper and looking for the next best thing, but always coming back to our roots.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool call out. And like, I appreciate you saying that on the ShipBob side, because I think we really see ourselves as brand obsessed in equal measure as customer obsessed, right? It's really important for us that our customers, meaning the brands, are able to maintain the type of relationship that they want to have with their customer. You know, the custom packaging that they want to use, custom gift inserts, if there's some touches that you want to add, if you want to self-fulfill because it's important that you have handwritten notes, or that, you know, someone in your facility is across every single package that you ship. Like, that's really how we want to empower brands. They want to feel like, okay, this was a Pit Viper fulfillment experience, not a ShipBob fulfillment experience.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because when we first started with ShipBob, there were a lot of features that we wanted to include. And over the years that we've been able to work so closely with your team and talking to the CEO and making sure like, hey, like this is a need for us. Let's see if we can meet that. And ShipBob's been super dynamic and able to help with that, as well as being a very reactive partner where if something's wrong, I can reach out to our customer service manager, and within, I don't know, probably 5 minutes, I will have a response and say, okay, like this is what the plan is. And I feel like that kind of personal touch, and I haven't dealt with too many other 3PLs, but I think it goes a long way. And I think ShipBob does a great job at it.
Thanks, Jourdan. Looks like I'm looking for comments and questions in the chat. I'm not seeing anyone. So if anyone has any questions for Jourdan, now is your chance. For challenges facing Pit Viper, this would be a perfect opportunity for me to go grab mine and put mine on if they're just outside of reach. But great. Anything else or any key pieces that you want to touch on, Jourdan, before we conclude?
I think just being able to have all of our systems integrated into one platform has been huge for us, and being able to use all that data and seeing all these different metrics that ShipBob can provide, or that any 3PL could provide, and using that to make data-driven decisions in terms of labor forecasting as well as inventory forecasting has been the biggest growth we've seen over the past 3 years within Pit Viper in terms of operations.
Yeah, so the idea that all your data lives in one place, it's easily exportable. You can see exactly what your costs are, what your order volume looks like, and just make decisions from there.
It sounds too good to be true. I'm curious, Jourdan, you right now you think you've expanded internationally, so Canada, Australia. Soon, I'm sure you'll have to expand to regions that aren't English speaking. I'm just curious. I mean, maybe it's more of a marketing or customer relationship challenge, but what other challenges might you expect as you maybe try to break into South America, Mexico, the rest of the EU, and so forth?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. In terms of an operational standpoint, we'll probably just stick with what we have right now in terms of locations. But beyond that, we are expanding our websites and having those be more personalized. So we just opened up a Switzerland site where it's more catered to that culture. We have language translation. So I think being able to localize in like an online presence is something that we're working towards, and making sure that each website experience is catered to the end user. And that's something that our web and marketing team have been working on.
I got you. And then maybe as volume increases, the finding the local 3PL becomes more viable.
Yes, exactly.
So let demand dictate. I think that's a smart way to do it.
Build it and they will come. Have the right language processing, have the right currency converter, have the right fulfillment partner.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. With that, really quick, Meg, tell us when people should be talking to ShipBob.
Really, anywhere you are in the growth journey, if anything that Jourdan said resonated with you, which I can imagine it did for a lot of brands, please, please, please reach out. We're happy to have a conversation, especially if you own and operate your own warehouse. It's still you're a perfect fit for what we can do and how we can support you. And really, if brands have any questions about omnichannel and international expansion, how it, getting the 0 to 1 for a brand's sometimes pretty challenging, but the 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 of getting on new sales channels and really building out where your brand is comes with its own set of challenges on the fulfillment side. So we're really here to support brands that are getting started, but then also looking to move omnichannel. So, or we can cast a pretty wide net. So
Love it.
Chad, if you have any questions.
Love it. And Patrick comes in with an interesting question. I think this is kind of maybe a pricing question. And personally, I don't think Pit Viper just has the kind of style, quality, cool factor that you find the money for it mostly. But with Patrick asking, as maybe times are a little bit tougher, there's been a change, in how people are spending money. What opportunities and margin aspects are you looking at? Do you change prices down? Obviously, we mentioned operational efficiency being really important. But yeah, I'll leave you with that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this comes down to how price sensitive our customers are and how kind of elastic our demand is. And this is something that we've been experimenting with. We've changed prices a few different times and just kind of seen what's stuck. And yeah, I think now that people do have less disposable income, we have seen some of our prices go down, and we do like to put things on sales more to kind of use that data to see, okay, like this price point is going to work best. So I think a lot of it is just trial and error with our price points and making sure that we're maintaining that margin. But I think it's just a lot of trial and error. And I think that kind of probably goes along with a lot of the other e-commerce brands where you just want to see how price sensitive your customers are. And usually it's just having sales and seeing what sticks. So I think that's kind of been our strategy the past couple of years.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. I know there are a lot of price testing software out there. Have you used anything like that?
No, not yet.
Do it manually.
Yeah, we're doing it pretty manually. But I could see us like down the road at some point using some sort of price sensitive analysis there.
Sounds like Dan in the comments might be a fan. Dan, I hope you didn't hear my flub of where I said football and not baseball. But really quickly, it seems like Pit Viper is super, super popular with baseball. Which sport would you say is the biggest or most popular with your sunglasses?
Yeah, honestly, we were snow and kind of mountain sports originally, and then now we're moving into the stick and ball space pretty heavily. So we've seen a huge growth in baseball, especially. So I'd say right now we're probably still more in the ski realm, but I could see stick and ball again. Like baseball is definitely on the come up. We've been supporting a lot of different baseball teams and sending out care packages. So I think our marketing team's been doing a great job of diving into that realm and kind of not moving away from, but expanding our customer breadth in those kind of sports. So we can see a lot of baseball players in the future wearing Pit Vipers.
I love it. As an avid pickleballer, I'd recommend this category. I see people wearing them sometimes, but the truth of the matter is, pickleball is all about eye protection. So you have a very good eye protection product, and you need great visibility. So I think you naturally cater to that audience. And honestly, the products in the market out there are generally overpriced and not that good. So I think Pit Viper fits right in.
We're coming for you, pickleball.
What's that?
We're coming for you, pickleball.
Yeah, it'll be everywhere. Get it on Tyson McGuffin. I couldn't think of a better fit.
Perfect.
You can ball and then ball and paddle. It's on.
Yeah, it's on.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you both so much for your time. We're going to go ahead and move right into our next session.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.